My name is Audrey, I'm 29, and I still can't wrap my head around how one evening could twist from excitement to absolute betrayal. I had spent weeks pouring my energy into a party that was supposed to celebrate love, yet somehow it ended with me feeling invisible in a room that I helped build from scratch. My boyfriend Ryan, 32, had been dating his ex-girlfriend Chloe a few months before this engagement party circus began. Chloe was, well, she had always carried herself like royalty, charming, magnetic, but with a streak of entitlement that could blind anyone. Ryan, ever patient, had tried to smooth over her whims for months, and I had reluctantly agreed to help, thinking, "It's just a party, Audrey. It's fine." But when Chloe started planning the engagement celebration, she roped me in immediately. "Audrey, you're amazing at organizing. I need your help. And you know Uncle David's venue, right? The one with the chandelier and the glass walls," she said, flashing that smile that had gotten her everything in the past. I sighed, knowing exactly what that meant. Hours on phone calls with caterers, menu tastings, coordinating invitations. I became the invisible engine powering her grandiose vision. The venue alone usually cost $18,000 for a Saturday, but because it was family, Uncle David agreed to offer it for just his operating costs, $2,000. My parents, feeling generous, told me privately they'd cover it as a gift to Chloe and Ryan. I explained to Chloe, careful not to sound smug, "Mom and Dad are covering Uncle David's costs as their gift for the ballroom." "Oh, that's sweet," she said lightly. "I also put down a $500 deposit from my own account to secure the date." I nodded, assuming the deposit would be handled fairly. Then came the text. "Chloe, hey Audrey, after talking with Ryan, we think it's probably best if you don't come to our engagement party on Saturday. It's going to be just close friends and people truly supportive of us. No hard feelings." I stared at my phone, my jaw literally dropping. My work, my effort, my parents' gift, gone, dismissed in a single swipe. I reread the message multiple times, hoping my eyes were deceiving me. But no, it was real. I felt a strange mixture of hurt, disbelief, and cold clarity. The betrayal was sharp, but also illuminating. I typed carefully. "Chloe, I respect your decision. Thanks for letting me know." Then I called Uncle David, the venue owner, my mind racing. "Hey, Uncle David, Chloe just told me I'm no longer welcome at her party. So, what happens to the venue?" He paused, clearly bemused. She did what? After you got her that deal for family terms, paid by your parents?" "Yep." He chuckled, a sly grin in his voice. "Well, we have options. I can't give her the prime ballroom under those terms anymore, but the back parking lot, dusty but spacious, $2,000. Same as the family rate." It was poetic. Justice served in a way that didn't require my hands. Saturday arrived. Chloe was furious. Texts, calls, screaming. I didn't answer. She screamed about the filthy parking lot, about how I sabotaged her entire engagement. I stayed silent, letting the universe play out the consequences she had so blatantly invited. Meanwhile, Ryan was visibly uncomfortable, caught between his ex's tantrum and my calm reasoning. Chloe's best friend Tiffany looked bewildered, unsure which side to support. My parents, quiet, simply nodded. They understood that this was natural fallout from Chloe's choices. By the end of the night, Chloe's Instagram was aflame with complaints about the party. She left out one tiny detail. She had uninvited me after knowing my parents were covering the venue. A smear campaign began, painting me as the villain. I almost laughed. Almost. Uncle David backed me up completely, confirming Chloe's rejection of my parents' gift voided any claim she might have had. I went home that night, exhausted, hurt, but strangely at peace. I realized something. No amount of anger could fix her entitlement, and no amount of pleading could make her fair. Sometimes, the best revenge is letting someone take exactly what they asked for and watching the consequences unfold. The party was a disaster for Chloe. Ryan, unsure how to defend her, began noticing cracks in her facade. Guests left early. The caterer struggled. Chaos reigned. And I wasn't there. I was on the outside, watching the truth settle like dust on a chandelier. That was just the beginning. The morning after the parking lot disaster, I woke up to my phone buzzing like a hive. Chloe's texts, calls, and social media posts had gone full nuclear. "Audrey, what did you do? My party was ruined. You sabotaged everything. You can't just ignore me." I let them pile up unread. Each ding felt like the echo of her own choices. Uncle David had sent me a text, too. I gave her a fair alternative. Your hands are clean. And indeed, they were. Chloe had demanded exclusion, rejected the family gift, and chosen her own consequence. All I had done was nothing. Ryan, however, was in the middle of the storm. I could see it on his face when we spoke later that morning. His jaw was tight. "Audrey, she's blowing up everywhere. People are talking. I don't know what to say." I exhaled, carefully, knowing how sensitive this was. "Ryan, she made her choices. The venue deal your parents funded, she knew, and she still uninvited me. The chaos isn't my doing, it's hers." He nodded, but I could see the internal conflict. He cared for Chloe in some lingering, nostalgic way, but her entitlement and manipulation were becoming impossible to ignore. The social media fallout was relentless. Chloe posted tearful videos, framing herself as the innocent victim of a jealous family member. She carefully omitted that she had knowingly turned down the gift, that she had uninvited me, and that the chaos at her party was the predictable result. Friends chimed in, sympathetic, but a few mutuals quietly posted facts. Facts Chloe promptly deleted. I felt a strange mix of vindication and exhaustion. I didn't engage. I didn't need to. Let the truth be visible to those with eyes to see. Uncle David, ever the sly observer, messaged me. "She's lucky I didn't invoice for the lost revenue. The $500 deposit? Gone. She can't claim it back. Let her stew." The escalation didn't stop there. The next week, Chloe's entitlement morphed into full-blown aggression. She began calling my work, leaving long, passive-aggressive voicemails. Ryan looked mortified when he learned about it. "Audrey, I don't know why she's dragging you into this at your job," he admitted. "It's what she does," I said, calm but firm. "She needs someone to blame. I'm just an easy target." Meanwhile, Chloe's best friend Tiffany seemed torn, occasionally messaging me privately, trying to understand if I'd really orchestrated some grand sabotage. I assured her, truthfully, that I had done nothing beyond respecting Chloe's decisions. At home, I replayed everything in my mind. The work I had done, the family generosity, the blatant rejection of all that. The betrayal burned, yes, but the calm clarity lingered. I wasn't the villain. Chloe's actions had created a storm, and I was merely watching the consequences settle. Then came the family dinner, a tension-filled arena where everyone who mattered would be present. Chloe, Ryan, her mother Carol, and the rest of the relatives. I decided it was time to quietly, firmly set the record straight. As everyone began to chatter about the parking lot fiasco, I cleared my throat. "I want to clarify something important," I said softly, drawing curious glances. "About Chloe's engagement party and the venue." Chloe stiffened. Ryan looked up, attentive. Her mother Carol frowned, sensing confrontation. I continued, calm but unwavering. "The $2,000 for the ballroom under the family agreement? That was a gift from my parents. Chloe knew about it before she decided I wasn't welcome. When she rejected me and the gift, Uncle David offered an alternative, the parking lot, at the same cost. This was her choice." Silence fell. The room froze. Ryan's eyebrows shot up. Chloe's lips parted, caught. Carol's jaw tightened. "She knew what she was doing," I added, letting the words sink in. The chaos that followed was the natural consequence of her own decisions. Ryan's eyes softened as understanding dawned. He looked at Chloe, then back at me, and I could see the faint cracks forming in his loyalty to her narrative. Chloe's perfect princess image, carefully curated for months, was unraveling in real time. And I felt a strange, bittersweet relief. It wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It was clarity, exposure, letting truth and integrity do the work. The parking lot wasn't just a venue, it was a symbol of consequences. By the end of the dinner, Chloe was flustered, her image tarnished, and her control slipping. Ryan, quietly processing, began to see her manipulations for the first time. I returned home that night, drained but firm, knowing this was only the beginning of the unraveling. Because sometimes the most powerful thing isn't confrontation, it's restraint. Watching the storm you didn't create crash against those who think they can control the world, and knowing you walked away unscathed. The next family gathering was a pressure cooker. Chloe, Ryan, Carol, and the rest of the relatives were all present, their chatter humming with tension. I could feel the weight of every expectation, every judgment, every whispered assumption pressing down as I stepped into the room. Ryan looked at me briefly, a flicker of worry in his eyes. "Audrey, are you sure about this?" he whispered. I nodded, my voice steady. "It's time," calmly, clearly. No accusations, just facts. Chloe, as always, was the center of attention, laughing too loudly at something someone said, her bangle-clad wrist tapping impatiently. Carol's eyes were sharp, watching me with quiet suspicion. I took a deep breath. "Since there's been a lot of chatter about the engagement party and the venue," I began, my voice low but carrying. "There's an important detail everyone needs to know." Chloe stiffened, her smile faltering. Ryan straightened in his chair, sensing the shift. Carol's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent, curious. "The $2,000 for the ballroom, the one under the family agreement?" I paused, letting eyes turn toward me. "That was a gift from my parents. Chloe knew about it before she decided I wasn't welcome." Whispers started immediately. Chloe's lips parted. Ryan's expression shifted from curiosity to shock. Carol blinked, caught off guard. "When she uninvited me," I continued, my voice calm, deliberate, "she knowingly rejected the generosity of my parents. The chaos that followed at the parking lot venue wasn't caused by me. It was the natural consequence of her choices." The room fell silent, the weight of truth hanging like smoke in the air. Ryan's eyes softened, disbelief and dawning realization mixing. Chloe's perfect, untouchable facade began to crumble under the scrutiny of everyone who had been present and hadn't yet heard the full story. She knew?" Ryan asked quietly, disbelief edging into his tone. "Yes," I replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "And when Uncle David offered the parking lot as an alternative, it was her choice to accept. Every bit of chaos, every frustrated guest, every logistical nightmare, her own doing." Chloe's face turned pale. Carol's lips pressed into a thin line. The room buzzed with muted conversations, relatives exchanging glances, slowly piecing together the facts I had just laid out. Ryan leaned back, processing, the weight of betrayal slowly settling. "Audrey, I didn't realize," he said, his voice barely audible. I thought she was telling the truth." I reached for his hand gently. "Sometimes, Ryan, we see only what someone wants us to see. Truth doesn't shout. It shows itself in actions." Chloe stammered, trying to interject, but the room no longer gave her attention. Her friends looked uneasy, unsure how to salvage the narrative she had so carefully built. Uncle David, quietly observing from the side, finally chimed in. "And as for the invoice, the $2,000 for the parking lot, plus $150 for cleanup. Since she rejected the family gift and the original ballroom deal, she is fully responsible. Payment is overdue, and if unpaid, it goes to collections. That's it." A murmur ran through the room. Chloe's attempts to manipulate the story had collapsed under the weight of undeniable facts. Every lie, every omission, every manipulative whisper was laid bare. I felt a strange, heavy relief. Not triumph, relief. Relief that truth had a chance to shine. Relief that Ryan could see clearly now. Relief that I had remained composed, refusing to escalate the drama further than necessary. By the end of the evening, Chloe was diminished, her entitlement and carefully curated perfection exposed. Ryan looked at me with something new in his eyes, a combination of admiration, gratitude, and trust restored. I realized then that justice didn't have to be dramatic or vengeful. Sometimes, calm clarity and truth were far more powerful than any argument or confrontation could ever be. The parking lot, the chaos, the texts, it was all a lesson in restraint, exposure, and moral high ground. And though the family dynamics were shaken, one thing became clear. The scales had tipped, and for the first time, Chloe wasn't untouchable. She had faced the consequences of her choices, and everyone who mattered could see it. The storm had passed, but its lessons lingered in the quiet moments afterward, reminding me that integrity always speaks louder than entitlement. Weeks passed, and the chaos that Chloe had unleashed began to settle, slowly, painfully, and predictably. The parking lot fiasco became the family's story no one wanted to retell aloud. yet everyone had witnessed. Chloe had no choice but to face the practical consequences of her entitlement. Uncle David, ever precise, sent her the formal invoice, $2,150. That included the $2,000 for the parking lot and an extra $150 for cleanup. No wiggle room, no exceptions. It was her choice to reject the family gift and the prime venue. Now she had to pay the price. Chloe protested, of course. Calls, texts, pleas, and even a few desperate, dramatic emails arrived in my inbox. I ignored them all. Her tantrums, her guilt-tripping, her attempts to manipulate my calm. They bounced off me like rain on glass. She had built the storm. She had to weather it herself. Ryan, quietly observing the situation from the sidelines, finally spoke up one evening. "Audrey, she really did know what she was doing, didn't she?" His voice carried both disbelief and a twinge of regret. I nodded. She did. Every choice, every decision, her responsibility. The chaos was inevitable. The only part we played was choosing to let natural consequences happen. Eventually, Chloe paid the invoice, reluctantly, bitterly. Every cent was a reminder that entitlement carries a cost. The $500 deposit she had initially put down, she reimbursed me without argument, though the victory felt secondary. The larger satisfaction was seeing the truth crystallized in the eyes of those who mattered: family, friends, and Ryan. The social fallout lingered a bit longer. Chloe's smear campaign, aimed at making me appear vindictive, slowly dissolved, as everyone who had witnessed her rejection of the gift realized the truth. Ryan quietly distanced himself from Chloe's attempts to manipulate the narrative, and I could see him reassessing everything he had previously accepted about her. Through it all, I reflected on what had happened. Betrayal is sharp and unforgiving, but clarity, clear, unshakable clarity, is even sharper. I hadn't screamed, I hadn't lashed out, and yet my moral high ground had never been stronger. Letting the storm unfold without interference had done more to expose Chloe than any confrontation ever could. At home, I sat with Ryan one evening, our hands intertwined as we quietly watched the sunset. "It's over," he said softly, a hint of awe in his voice. "I don't think I've ever seen someone handle betrayal like you did." I smiled, but inside I knew it was more than just betrayal. It was a lesson in patience, in restraint, in letting truth outshine manipulation. I had learned that standing still, refusing to fight dirty, could be far more powerful than any revenge scheme. And Chloe? She had lost more than a fancy party. She had lost credibility, influence, and the illusion of control. Her carefully curated, perfect princess image had been dismantled, and those who mattered, those who had seen the full picture, no longer bought the story she had spun. For me, life returned to its rhythm. Family gatherings were quieter, the tension lingering, but softened by understanding. Ryan and I grew closer, strengthened by the shared experience and by the clarity of seeing human flaws laid bare. Sometimes the most potent form of justice isn't loud or vengeful. It's quiet. It's composed. It's knowing when to step back and let natural consequences do the work. Chloe wanted chaos. She got chaos, and she couldn't blame anyone else for it. In the end, the storm had passed. But the lessons remained etched in memory. Entitlement always carries a cost. Truth has a power no lie can withstand. And integrity, once upheld, speaks louder than any scream. It was quiet now. The storm had passed, and the family drama that had threatened to consume everyone's week, no, months, had settled into uneasy calm. Chloe's tantrums, the social media posts, and the smear campaigns were history. The parking lot fiasco had become an awkward footnote in the family memory, one that whispered lessons rather than headlines. I sat alone in the living room one evening, reflecting. My name is Audrey Carter, I'm 32, and I had survived chaos. Not just survived, but emerged with a new understanding of strength. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's watching the consequences of someone else's choices play out, and knowing you did everything you could without sacrificing your integrity. Ryan joined me, curling up on the couch beside me. "You were incredible," he said softly, eyes fixed on mine. "I think I finally see her, Chloe, for what she really is, and I see you too, so clearly now." I squeezed his hand, smiling. It wasn't about being incredible, it was about being patient, calm, letting truth have its moment. He nodded, as though that one phrase, truth having its moment, made everything else fall into place. In the quiet between us, I realized how much this ordeal had strengthened us, individually and together. Trust wasn't just about faith, it was about witnessing integrity firsthand. And now Ryan had seen it. Family gatherings remained delicate, but they shifted in subtle ways. Conversations about Chloe were more measured, tinged with an awareness of her actions and their consequences. I could see relatives quietly reassessing loyalties, measuring the difference between entitlement and honesty. I had been vindicated, not by confrontation, but by the undeniable clarity of truth. And Chloe? Her perfect princess image was fractured, and though she carried herself as if nothing had happened, everyone who mattered had seen the cracks. She still moved through the family circles with a forced composure, but her control was gone. The entitlement she once wielded so freely no longer held sway over me, or over those who truly mattered. As I looked back, I realized the most lasting change wasn't in Chloe or the party. It was in me. I had learned the subtle art of letting consequences unfold naturally, the power of calm in the face of chaos, and the strength of standing firmly in one's truth. It was a lesson I would carry far beyond family parties and entitlement dramas. Ryan leaned his head on my shoulder, and I felt the warmth of partnership, not just romantic, but shared understanding, shared values, and the quiet trust that comes from surviving storms together. Sometimes letting someone have exactly what they asked for is the most effective form of justice. Chloe had wanted her party her way, no me. She got it, and she got everything that came with it, the chaos, the humiliation, the exposure of her lies. I had wanted a life of love, clarity, and calm, free from manipulation and deceit. I got that too. And in the quiet, as the sun set and shadows lengthened across the living room, I understood something simple but profound. The best revenge isn't rage, it's truth. And the best peace isn't avoidance, it's integrity lived, quietly and unwaveringly. Life was back to its rhythm. The storm had passed, the lessons remained, and the future, Ryan and I together, was steady, grounded, and stronger than ever.